It seemed to me back in the spring that Tony Bennett wasn't thinking Reece Beekman was coming back. Hey, Chris Graham here. We're going to talk some UVA basketball. Today is media day as I'm recording this over in Charlottesville. Scott Drummond will be covering media day, and we'll have Scott on a little later this week and talk some more about the upcoming UVA basketball season, which is only a week away from starting next Monday night, November 6th in Charlottesville. So, I'm saying that Tony Bennett, I didn't think was thinking Beekman was coming back, the star point guard. I say that because Bennett went out and found a second point guard, Andrew Rohde, on the transfer portal to go along with his other transfer, the Georgetown point guard, Dante Harris, who came in mid-year last year. Now, Beekman had declared for the NBA draft back in March. He went through all the workouts. He went through the combine, actually did pretty well in the combine. I remember reporting on that. He had some good numbers. One of the games, he had double digits, and he was playing good defense along the way. Also along the way, he made it clear he wasn't all that happy with how things went for Caden Shedrick. Remember, Caden Shedrick last year transferred out after being benched mid-January, second straight year that Shedrick was benched in mid-January, the former four-star. Entered the transfer portal. He flirted with going to Duke, and then he decided to go to Texas. And when he left, he had some, rather pointed comments for Coach Tony Bennett and how he thought he, being Shedrick, was treated. He said he just didn't think Virginia was the best place for me anymore, given what happened at the end of the season. And Beekman said, in response to that he felt like he spoke his mind. Anything he said, he was justified for, Beekman said. I will back him up 100%. I agree with what he said. I'm happy for him. I'm happy to see him in a new situation. So I remember reading that and thinking, kid ain't coming back. He was doing really well in the and he did really well at the combine. He was doing, seemed to be getting glowing reviews from the NBA front offices that he for the teams he worked out for. The writings on the wall. And then at the 11th hour, decided to withdraw and come back. And so, oddly, that might have created a problem for Tony Bennett. He had two point guards already in the system, and Rohde and Harris. And, of course, you get back a guy who's a projected first-round draft pick. It's a nice problem to have. And Tony Bennett being Tony Bennett last week at the ACC basketball tip-off in Charlotte, he did what he does. He shrugged the issue off, also emphasized the silver lining. And I'll read from a quote here from Tony Bennett. Actually, I told this to Reece the other night. Watching Reece and Dante go against each other in practice, I think that's been really good for Reece. Because if you don't have good stuff, you're not going to get by a guy like that, and vice versa. Those guys have been fun to watch, go head-to-head in practice and develop. Hey, I mean, he's talked about Dante Harris, the former Georgetown guard, as being a guy that reminds him defensively of a guy like Kihei Clark, Jontel Evans, if you think way back in the day for UVA basketball, Bennett's first couple of years in Charlottesville. And so now the good problem that Tony Bennett has, he has 3-point guards who could be the primary guy for a lot of programs in the country. Beekman is, though, the clear number one, and I think that's really important to point out. He's the reigning defending ACC Defensive Player of the Year. He's getting better as an offensive player. He shot 24.3% from three his first year. He's was 35.1% last year as a junior. Defenders were able to sag off Beekman when he was a freshman, basically say, beat us from three. And Beekman, when he would shoot, was very tentative and often just didn't. And of course, if you have a guy out there that, in the way UVA runs its offense, if you have a guy out there in the perimeter not drawing perimeter defense, it just makes everything hard to work. It kind of gums up the operation. And because Beekman is an elite level paint toucher, he gets in he's so quick, he's so decisive, both finishing for himself and also for his teammates. Third in the ACC last year in assists, while just a little bit behind teammate Kihei Clark, in a system that plays really low possessions. So you got to think, with Clark gone this year, with Beekman being the primary ball handler last year, the last couple of years, those two guys split that role, Clark and Beekman. That Beekman's assist numbers will go up, make him even more effective as an offensive player. And so, I think the advantage here for Virginia will be Tony Bennett has shown in the last several years that he likes going to a 2-point guard lineup he plays 3 guards, 2 forwards. I know traditionally you think, 2 guards, 2 forwards, a center. But Bennett really from day one in Charlottesville has been the 3 guards and 2 forwards guy. And since the 2018-2019 team, where he ended up starting, of course, Ty Jerome and Kyle Guy, your traditional point guard and shooting guard, and he started Kihei Clark a good bit of that season alongside, including the stretch run and the NCAA tournament. Bennett has made clear that when he's got 2 options at point guard, he'll put them side by side. The last 3 years, for example, Beekman and Clark side by side. After the 1-year experiment with Clark and Ty Jerome. So the issue with that, if you want to call it an issue, is you got 2 point guards as among your 3 starting guards. Having a backup to be able to come in. And now he'll have that with 3, at least for this year, and actually maybe even for next year too. Christian Bliss, the top recruit, is already the top recruit for the class of 2024, who reclassified to 2023, is redshirting this year in Charlottesville. Assuming the roster only loses Reece Beekman to the NBA draft next year after his 4th senior year, Beekman would have a 5th year from the COVID redshirt year if he would want it. Very doubtful he would want that, but this could be the start of a new thing for Tony Bennett, having 3 elite level point guards. Let's just stockpile them all up, right? So yeah, good problem to have, having a point guard off the bench as part of your rotation. I remember there was a game last year. I think it was a Wake Forest game down there in Winston-Salem where it was a rare one. I mean, the only time I can remember this happening. But both Clark and Beekman picked up their 4th fouls somewhere around the 10-minute mark of the second half, and there was nobody to play point. Having a 3rd guy would certainly give you some insulation there. Now, Dante Harris, I talked about. Tony Bennett said he reminds him defensively as a Kihei Clark guy. Here's the quote: "Dante is one of the quickest on-ball defenders that I've coached, and I've had Kihei. Reece is, of course, a terrific on-ball defender, and then the guy named Jontel Evans that he took when he first took the job over, who was tenacious. Jontel was, he was definitely that. Jontel was a guy that could have played elite level defensive back in college football if he decided to go that route." Continuing with the quote from Tony Bennett: "Dante brings a level of quickness and toughness on the ball that's certainly helpful for us, and that he's played, and he's a guy who can touch the paint and very competitive. I really have enjoyed seeing that competitiveness." Because also when he was at Georgetown, Harris was a double-digit scorer. The one thing he'll need to improve on is shot selection. He shot 37.5% from the floor, 27.5% from 3 his last year at Georgetown, 2020, 2021. But I think that's probably a factor. I think we'll see this. It was probably more a factor of the lack of talent around him at Georgetown. That was a pretty subpar Georgetown team there when Patrick Ewing was struggling to get things going there. Rohde is a different kind of point guard, to say the least. He's 6'6". He's got wizard-like ball handling skills. He can also shoot the ball pretty well. Scored 17 plus a game last year at St. Mary's before transferring. He was the Summit League Rookie of the Year. He can get his own shot. He can shoot the 3. He can play off ball and be very effective in that role. So those are your 3 point guards. Obviously, guys who are going to be in the mix. Isaac McNeely will start as your Kyle Guy, let's just say, or Armand Franklin. And in fact, he will fill in for Armand Franklin. Franklin left for the, as it turns out, the G League. He was a leading scorer last year. McNeely, the rising, well, I guess he's already a second-year player. He's a dead-eye shooter at 6'4", stout guy. That's your 3rd starter in the backcourt. Also competing for time in the backcourt, Tane Murray, who you may remember had earned rotation minutes at the end of last season, the 6'5" junior. Leon Bond, then the redshirt freshman, another 6'5" guy, 4-star recruit from 2022 who redshirted last year. And then heralded freshman recruit Elijah Gertrude, 6'4" combo guard. So he can play some point. He can shoot. He can get in the lane. Chose Virginia over Kansas, Syracuse, and Maryland, among several others. Highly touted young man there. So those are 7 names competing for what the way Tony Bennett likes to play. He plays an 8-man rotation overall, 5 in the backcourt, 3 in the front court 5 for his 3 positions in the backcourt, 3 for his 2 positions in the front court. I got 7 guys that are competing for 5 rotation spots in the backcourt. So practices should be pretty competitive. I'm sure they have been and will be for the next few days. And actually, as the season goes on, Tony Bennett leaves open the playing time throughout. So you'll see that. Guys in the mix in the front court include Ryan Dunn, who was recruited as a 4-star guard. He was 6'4" when he committed, ended up growing to 6'8". So now he's I'm thinking DeAndre Hunter with him. That 2018-2019 team had DeAndre Hunter starting in the front court. He plays the 3 position in the NBA, Swiss Army knife defender, and that's what Ryan Dunn is. Can defend all 5 positions. He can play guard. He can shoot the 3. He can get to the lane. He can also finish in the post. And so that's why Ryan Dunn's a projected first-round draft pick next year. He will certainly be a starter in the front court, and he can also he can play some if as needed in the backcourt as needed. And then Jordan Minor is the guy that I would expect to be the other starter in the front court. The 6'8" transfer from Merrimack. He's a grad transfer, beast in the post. And then the other guys competing for time, Blake Buchanan, the 6'11" 4-star who chose Virginia over Gonzaga. He's from out west. Jake Rhodes, the 6'9" grad transfer wing, a great 3-point shooter, transferred in from Oklahoma. Kind of reminds me skill-wise, and as a Ben Vanderplas, maybe just an upgrade on Ben Vanderplas. No offense to Ben. We'll miss the stash and the headband. And then Anthony Robinson, a freshman, 6'10", 238-pound bruiser in the post. And so those are 5 guys competing for the 3 slots in the front court. Now, if Beekman hadn't come back, that roster would be pretty good. And then the ACC writers and broadcasters picked Virginia 4th in the preseason. It just doesn't make any sense to me. This team last year's team was good. It was really good. 15-5 in the ACC, top 10 in the country most of the season. Rose to as high as number 2 in the rankings. Got a number 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. Got upset in the first round. That happens. But good. I mean, obviously, that's a 25-win team. This year's team is better than last year's team. It's head and shoulders better than last year's team. And so is what it is. The media says one thing. I think Virginia fans will see that this is a team that has a pretty high ceiling going into the 2023-2024 season. So I mentioned at the beginning of this segment that Scott German is over in Charlottesville for us today as I'm recording on Monday, October 30th. And it's media day. Coach Tony Bennett, also the women's program, Coach Mox, players from both the men's and women's programs. Scott will be sending me interview snippets, and also he'll be writing about this. We'll both be covering the team all week long. So if you want to get your fix before next Monday, November 6th, you'll come to AugustaFreePress.com and be able to do so. If you have any questions for me, anything for me to address in a future podcast, future story, future column, please email me at chris@AugustaFreePress.com.